Next on Italics, we'll explore a collection of paintings entitled The Journey Continues, which span the career of artist Constance del Vecchio Maltese. The Journey Continues was recently on exhibition at the Italian-American Museum.
The recent exhibition at the Italian-American Museum at the Calandra Institute features a retrospective of the work of artist Constance del Vecchio Maltese.
I want to thank every one of you. I am so pleased to see all of you here. As Maria said, of course, you can do a painting, but if there's nobody to look at it, what good is it really? I had a teacher that said, art for art's sake is like a bridge for bridge's sake. You got to cross it.
I want to express my deep congratulations and heartfelt thanks to my wife, Constance, who blessed me by saying yes some 51 years ago. Thank you, Constance.
Constance, can you tell us a little bit about how you got started in the world of art?
That is a story from a long time ago. I was about 6 years old, and being a latchkey kid, the thing that I had to do while my mother was working was to come home from school, let myself in, and keep myself occupied until she got home from work. And when you're an only child, what can you do? You sit down and you draw. After we got to the point where I was at junior high school, I got my first art award, then went to the School of Industrial Arts High School, then to the Parsons School of Design, the Art Students League. I met my husband, and I became an illustrator while he went to school, and I worked freelance for a good period of time, 38 years as an illustrator. Well, illustrators, of course, in the day of Norman Rockwell were very big at the time, but then photography started to take over. So illustrators were beginning to be passé, and mostly photography took over. And then, of course, after that, you went into slide films that the computers started doing. So there was very little room for illustration, which is why I thought this is a good time for me to retire and become a fine artist, which is what I did. I went to the Art Students League and took some extra courses with portraiture in mind. What was held in good stead is the fact that you were an illustrator. You did have deadlines, so you didn't wait for the mood to come. You just sort of jumped in with 2 feet and started painting, and it all came together.
You know, I really first became acquainted with your work in 1992. Could you tell us a little bit about the series, the Discovery series?
Oh, yes. Well, Ann Paolucci, and she was the one that said, well, Connie, if you want to get into portraiture, why don't you start with this Columbus Countdown? You could do a portrait of Columbus. And I was being very flippant at the time, and I said, well, gee, nobody ever knew what Columbus looked like. I said, who would I get to sit? You know, he's dead. That kind of thing. Well, of course, Henry came out, her husband, with a list of books like this. His son had written that he was a fine figure of a man. He was blonde, blue-eyed, and turned completely gray in his mid-30s. That's the only thing that they knew about Columbus. Out of my imagination, that was the first one that I did. It was just somebody that I figured would be symbolic of a strong kind of man that wants to go out in the New World or to find the New World, and he should look virile and, quite frankly, good-looking. You know, I was after that.
Well, you've had a number of very interesting subjects, and I know your women's series also. Would you tell us a little bit about that?
When Claire Schulman told me that her daughter was an astronaut, and I thought, what better one to start with? It was great because it worked hand in glove with what I wanted to do, and Dr. Baker was a very down-to-earth kind of person, mother, was a doctor, and was able to do the moonshot at the same time. Now, that certainly is extraordinary. Ann Paolucci there, she was certainly an excellent choice. She can just do about anything, you know. There's nothing that she cannot accomplish. The lady that is over there, who is with Tender Loving Care, she was the one that helped AIDS children, and she was able to be very instrumental in the head nurse over at Elmhurst Hospital. I love this one, the runner, because she was the one that I had posed as a Gibson girl, because she had looked like a Gibson girl. And she was so unhappy in those clothes, and when I asked her what was the matter, and she said she doesn't feel comfortable. And I said, well, what would you feel comfortable? She said, my running clothes. She came and she put on her medals and her running clothes, and she had this attitude now, you know, like, this is me. Here I am in all my glory. And I thought, well, that's great, you know, let's do it. And of course, the Indian lady, I thought that would be an interesting one. She has an exotic face, and we do have a large influx of Indian population coming in now, and I just love that sari. Of course, Joyce Lim, who is there as a head in a dollar bill. You see, the outline is as though she's in the middle of the dollar bill. And that hieroglyphic on the bottom left is actually how it is written in Chinese, because I wanted it to look the combination of the Asian and the American. And of course, who can forget Olga Mendez, who is the Puerto Rican senator. She has this attitude when she speaks, and of course the many faces of Olga there, and that's the Puerto Rican emblem on the bottom there. And of course you know Melinda Katz, and she's over there too. To the music born, her father was the one that, I guess, the discoverer or the one that started the Queen's Symphony.